Famous for its difficult puzzles, fun adventures, interesting storylines, and one of gaming's most iconic female figures, the Tomb Raider series has seen a huge level of success over the 25 years since the release of the first game. However, there is one game that would change the course of the Tomb Raider series forever. I present to you Tomb Raider Angel of Darkness. In the year 2000, development began on Tomb Raider's first adventure onto the PlayStation 2. However, as Eidos Interactive put more and more pressure onto core design, the development became a bit of a mess, even being completely scrapped and restarted once. I already have a video talking about what happened during the development phase, however all you need to know is that the game was eventually released in 2003, 3 years later than intended. And while graphically it looked amazing at the time, this wouldn't be enough to distract you from the bugs, confusing story, or clunky movement mechanics. However, speedrunners don't care about any of these things, and over the years there will be some unique and interesting tricks discovered, eventually aiding speedrunners in beating the game in under 20 minutes. Today we're going to look at how the any percent route developed, as more and more game-breaking tricks were discovered, especially in the last 5 years. This is how speedrunners completely broke Tomb Raider's worst game. Just very quickly before the video starts, I wanted to kindly ask you to click the like button on this video as it helps the video get pushed out to a much wider audience, which is a great help for a small channel such as myself. And on the subject of a wider audience, why don't you subscribe while you're here? I've got some smaller video projects planned, and subscribing will be a great way to make sure you don't miss them.
If I had a coconut for every time some lunatic said something like that.
The game features 29 levels in total. The first 19 are based in Paris, as Lara Croft is chased around by the police who suspect her for the murder of her friend Werner von Croy, all while collecting clues and trying to solve the murder herself. And the final 10 levels are based in Prague, as Lara infiltrates an underground organisation called the Cabal in search for the game's main antagonist, Peter van Eckhart. There is also an unfinished area just outside of the first level that was originally going to be a training area to teach you the controls of the game. However, they ended up leaving it in the game half finished, albeit unaccessible without some sort of external program or cheat code. It even features voice lines, items, and most importantly, it leads you straight to the trigger for the second level. But we'll get back to that later on. The first recorded speedrun of the game would come 3 years after the game's release. On November 17th, 2006, a Czech speedrunner by the name of Ewil would upload the first speedrun for the game to Speed Demo's archive. It was a segmented run, meaning he recorded different sections of the run at different times and put the best recordings of each section together to create the run. Ewil was able to achieve 1 hour, 57 minutes and 17 seconds, and it didn't feature any major glitches or tricks, but that doesn't mean it wasn't fairly optimised. For example, in the 5th level of the game, the Parisian Ghetto, you can only exit the level by entering a passcode that leads you through to the next level. To acquire the code, you normally have to speak to a barista, who tells you to go to an old nightclub you used to work at called Le Serpent Rouge, bringing back some items he left there in exchange for the passcode. However, Ewil recognised that the code is the same every time, and the keypad is fully accessible from the moment you enter the level, meaning he could run straight to the keypad and leave. This not only saved a lot of time, but also a bit of his sanity, as Le Serpent Rouge is a very long and boring climb to the top, and after about 30 seconds, the music starts to drive you a little bit crazy. Apart from small time saves here and there, Ewil featured no major level skips or glitches in the rest of the run. For a long time, Ewil's run would stand as not only the first speedrun of the game, but the only speedrun of the game, until on the 3rd of August 2013, when TR Echo would begin uploading a segmented run level by level to YouTube, that would turn out to be a 1 hour, 35 minute and 17 second time, exactly 22 minutes faster than Ewil. So what did he implement in this run that would save 22 minutes worth of time? Well, in the majority of places, Echo's route was largely similar. However, in the Tomb of Ancients, Echo would showcase the first new glitch of the speedrun. Normally, upon reaching the bottom of this gigantic room, you have to pull a lever to release some platforms that lead you to yet another lever that then opens the trapdoor back at the bottom of the room. However, once Echo reaches the bottom for the first time, he lines himself up on a raised section of the floor and performs a backflip, aiming to land right onto the trapdoor. However, he doesn't just land on it, he clips straight through. So how was this possible? This is because the trapdoor is actually an incredibly thin object, and with enough speed, Lara is able to clip straight through. This trick would later be called the thin floor bug, and this wasn't the only place that Echo would use it. He would implement it 2 more times in the run, both coming a few levels later in the Monstrum crime scene. Normally at the start of the level, you have to locate a specific guard that you must kill to acquire a hammer, which is then used to break open a trapdoor hidden behind this building. However, once again this trapdoor is an incredibly thin object, and with just the right angle, Echo is able to side flip onto it, clipping straight through. Then later on in the level you are faced with a puzzle room, where you must traverse all the way to the top to pull some chains, before returning to the bottom to set the clock to 3 o'clock, which in turn opens up a hidden staircase in the floor. However, Echo discovered that the floor covering the staircase is again an incredibly thin layer, and by standing against a wall and backflipping, Lara will clip straight through. Even though you haven't activated the stairs, the actual collision for the stairs is always there, so once he is done in the secret room, he's able to use the invisible stairs to run back up and complete the level. This would conclude Echo's use of thin floor bugs in the run, and while they were pretty good time saves, they are nothing compared to what we were about to see. Later on in the game, you play 2 levels as a character called Curtis, as you run through a sanitarium and a maximum containment area inside of a mental asylum. This is actually the only time in the entire Tomb Raider franchise where you play as anyone other than Lara Croft, and as it would turn out, Curtis is completely broken. If you are in the running animation and you crouch, Curtis will actually move forward a small amount as he crouches, which means that by running up to any door or wall that is thin enough and crouching before the running animation stops, Curtis will crouch, move forward and clip straight through. This means that you can basically skip all gameplay in the level by just clipping through doors and vents that would normally require unlocking via several keypads across the level. You are left then only with the Proto-Nephilim boss fight, which cannot be skipped by utilising this crouch clip, as the level ends when you pull down this lever that is only usable once you've completed the boss fight. However, this trick would only be possible on some versions of the game. There appears to have been a little bit of patchwork done on the game shortly after release, resulting in 3 main versions: V42, V49 and V52. The Curtis crouch glitch was patched in V52, which is actually the version of the game that Ewil based his route on, so whether Ewil was aware of the glitch or not, he would not have been able to do it no matter how hard he tried. Echo played on version 49, however version 42 would have also worked for this route. You could actually download a patcher for any version you liked on a website known as Stella's Tomb Raider site, which makes it very easy and accessible for anyone to use any version. And this concludes Echo's route, the first for the game that featured considerable skips and glitches, mainly in the form of clipping through things. However, the route as a whole was still mainly glitchless, and time saves came from things such as smoother movement and faster load times. However, there was a rather interesting bug that would occasionally be posted on old forums or Tomb Raider bug finding sites, where people would report that they had hit themselves on a wall in a random place in the middle of a level, and the game would act like they'd hit a level end trigger and skip them to the next level. For example, on this extremely beautiful looking Tomb Raider Bugs and Curiosities website, a player named Guffin submits a post titled "Jump Right to the Tomb of Ancients level," where he states that in the archaeological dig level, by standing on the bridge and facing the small digger, you can then perform a backflip into the corner of the lift behind you and it will send you straight to the next level, the Tomb of Ancients. However, he also states that while trying to get it, it would sometimes crash his game instead. The only screenshot posted was this picture, which looks kind of like a setup, but when trying to line it up, nobody else seemed to be able to replicate it. There was also a few videos uploaded to YouTube of examples where this strange level skipping bug would occur, the most promising of which was this example right at the beginning of the Louvre storm drains. The video shows Lara performing a forward roll into the slope that you slide down at the start of the level, and when hit at just the right angle, it triggers the level end cutscene and spawns Lara at the start of the next level, the Louvre Galleries. If someone was able to come along and use this in a speedrun, this trigger bug alone could save up to 10 minutes, as the Louvre Storm Drains is an incredibly long and boring level, with a lot of monotonous climbing and valve turning. It was videos and forum posts like these that would regularly pique the interest of a Tomb Raider fan, speedrunner and router by the name of Wheretiger. He would often see these bugs and try to replicate them, but always without any luck. 2016 would come and Wheretiger would decide he wanted to put a lot of effort into routing the any % for Angel of Darkness, and the trigger bug would be something that he would definitely want to include in the new route, if only he could get it to work. And while looking around for other bugs and glitches that he could implement into a speedrun, he would stumble across a channel by the name of Shrensh, who was regularly posting videos of glitches, exploits, or funny clips from any and all Tomb Raider games, and there was one video that would take Wheretiger's interest, the elegantly titled "Lara walks through objects and over gaps to get pickups in Tomb Raider Angel of Darkness." The video would show Lara, in the bio-research facility level, climb up onto this water feature which would instantly force Lara to slip back down. Mysteriously, upon landing back on the ground, her left leg completely disappears, and the action icon appears in the bottom right. This icon appears normally when you are stood next to something that you can use or pick up, such as opening a door, using a lever, or picking up an item. Then, when Shrensh presses the action button, Lara starts walking straight through the environment to pick up a magazine on the other side of the room. So what the hell just happened? Well, it turns out that by the specific way that Lara slid down the slope, it completely displaced the position of her leg, meaning that she was able to interact with any items or objects in the level that she was pointing roughly in the direction of and was between the height of her feet and torso. What makes it even more special is that she avoids all collision with objects and is also completely invincible the entire time that she's moving towards the interactable object. Wheretiger would again try his best to replicate this glitch, recognising that this could have great potential in a speedrun. However, much like the level trigger bug, he couldn't do it, and he would leave a comment on Shrensh's video asking him how he had managed to achieve this glitch. Using a program known as the Tomb Raider Angel of Darkness Startup Configuration Utility, more commonly referred to as the Shroud SCU, you are able to fine-tune the game's settings in much more detail than can be done inside the game's own settings menu. It would also be useful for practicing individual levels of a speedrun, as you could use the program to select any level you like, with added options such as full weapons and ammo, and even a debug key that you could press to essentially give Lara no clip, should you want to get to a specific part of the level. Wheretiger was already aware of this program, however Shrensh would point him in the direction of one specific setting. This golden setting was known as Intel SSE. In older computers, CPUs could only process a single element of data per instruction. However, in 1999, Intel would introduce a piece of technology known as streaming single instruction multiple data extensions, which put simply allows the processor to handle more than one data element for every instruction, which would be extremely useful for improving and speeding up things such as 3D graphics rendering and video decoding. Shrensh would tell Wheretiger that by disabling this setting, he was able to make this leg-breaking glitch work. So Wheretiger disabled Intel SSE, tried the glitch, and lo and behold, Lara's leg would break. And then came the epiphany. If we take a closer look at one of the level skip videos we saw earlier, we can see that right before Lara is teleported out of the level, one of her legs completely disappears. Could this mean that disabling SSE would also make these mystery trigger bugs possible? Well, Wheretiger would give it a go, attempting to hit a trigger bug in the first level of the game that wouldn't teleport you to the next level, but would in fact kill you. Obviously this particular trigger bug isn't exactly useful in a speedrun, but if this one worked, then all the other trigger bugs would work too. And much to Wheretiger's excitement, he got the result he desired. The hunt was now on to find these trigger bugs in as many of the levels as possible, and on the 12th of December 2016, Wheretiger would finally upload the route he had created to YouTube. He had managed to take an almost 2-hour long speedrun and improve it down to 41 minutes. There were two tricks that would play the main role in being able to save so much time. The first of which was of course the trigger bugs and leg breaking, however he had also discovered a bug called 2 collision clipping. By going prone between two objects, with Lara pointing at just a perfect angle, you can get her to clip through the object in front, and we wouldn't have to wait long to see either of these tricks play out. In the first level, normally upon reaching the top of this building, you would have to collect a crowbar to break open this door, that in turn upgrades Lara's strength just enough to enable you to ledge crawl your way across to this balcony area. However, as soon as Wheretiger gets up on the roof, he performs the first 2 collision clip of the speedrun in between this hut and the wall, clipping straight through onto the balcony. Normally at this point you then have to sneak past a guard to steal a key that unlocks the gate at the end of the balcony, leading to the ladder that you climb down to the next level. However, instead of doing all this, Wheretiger lines himself up and performs the first trigger bug of the speedrun, ironically breaking Lara's legs on the invisible wall, stopping you from jumping off the balcony down to the trigger. The next trick of the run was 2 levels later on the industrial rooftops. After tediously pulling Lara over to the opposite building, he performs a swan dive into the descending rooftop slope, which breaks Lara's legs and hits the trigger for the end of the level. However, a few levels later in the Parisian ghetto, he would showcase not 1, but 2 trigger bugs. The first is immediately as you enter the level, without even leaving the abandoned train that you spawn in, he performs a trigger bug that puts him up into the next section. However, the next trigger bug would be massive. At this point you would normally have to use the keypad mentioned earlier to enter Saint Acard's graveyard, leading then into Bouchard's hideout, where you explore and eventually sit in a lengthy unskippable conversation with a guy called Bouchard, before making your way out of the level, back up to the Parisian ghetto, then down to Ren's pawn shop where you collect a load of items that Bouchard left for you, which in turn then allows you to leave the level. However, instead of doing that, Wheretiger runs straight to the pawn shop. However, because he hasn't spoken to Bouchard, it's not possible to enter the back of the shop to pick up the items and leave the level. But just because we can't access it, doesn't mean it isn't loaded. And Wheretiger had discovered that you could perform a trigger bug in the corner of the shop that would hit the trigger and skip even entering 3 levels. Then shortly after 2 skippable cutscenes, Wheretiger would then perform the fastest trigger bug of the run. By holding the keys to perform a swan dive as you load into Louvre storm drains, Lara will instantly swan dive into another trigger bug, skipping the entire Louvre storm drain level. This meant that in the space of 1 single minute, Wheretiger had made it past 5 individual levels in the game, completely avoiding 3 of them. Once inside the Louvre, he would use a guard to perform a 2 collision clip, going out of bounds for the first time in the speedrun. While out of bounds, all wall collisions are loaded, while the textures are not. However, doors behave in the completely opposite way. They are fully visible, yet have no collision. meaning Wheretiger can run straight through this door that normally requires a keycard that you pick up in another section of the level. Then with some good memory of how the level looks normally, he can navigate his way down the stairs straight to the archaeological dig site, where we would now see the biggest skip of the entire speedrun. Normally upon solving the archaeological dig site, you then enter the Tomb of Ancients, leading to the Hall of Seasons, which then contain a further 4 small levels inside, before eventually leading you to a boss fight, which then results in you returning back to the archaeological dig site. However, Wheretiger would once again use a guard to perform a 2 collision clip through to this fence, and after running right to the end, he hits the trigger that makes the game think he has just returned from the Tomb of Ancients. Then by using this box, he can use a 2 collision clip to get back through, right to the final door of the level, leading into the galleries under siege. By doing all of this, he successfully skipped 6 levels, and saved around 25 minutes worth of time. Then once in the galleries under siege, he performs a simple trigger bug that skips the whole level, although it's worth mentioning that this trigger bug means you skip a part of the level where Lara retrieves some respirators, which for whatever reason that I can't explain, is how she unlocks the ability to sprint. Luckily in the next level, Wheretiger is able to kick down a door that increases Lara's leg strength to the level that you should be at by this point, kindly giving her the ability to sprint. Then in the Monstrum crime scene, he would clip through the trapdoor, followed by a trigger bug, sending him to the Strahov fortress, where he then uses 2 collision clipping to skip some puzzle tasks, ultimately arriving at the bio research facility. Here he would use the same method from Shrensh's video by climbing up onto the water feature at the start of the level, which in turn would break Lara's leg. However, instead of using it to pick up the ammo like in the video, he heads back up the stairs until he is at a very specific height, and points himself in the direction of a different piece of ammo that is in the same room as the switch that unlocks the door to the rest of the level. Once Lara's legs are broken once, they remain broken until you exit the level or save and load. Wheretiger takes advantage of this later on by positioning himself in a particular direction at the bottom of this set of stairs. He can then pick up an item in the next room along before performing a trigger bug in the unloaded room, as remember, while out of bounds, all wall and object collisions are still loaded in. This skips a lot of the level, such as a massive room that you have to run and climb to collect a few keycards. In the sanitarium, Wheretiger would make good use of the aforementioned crawl bug. However, when he reaches this section of the level, he would prove that it's not just Lara that the trigger bug works for. And a few levels later we would see the final trigger bug of Wheretiger's route, right at the beginning of the aquatic research area. So this totals 10 trigger bugs in the new revised route, bringing an almost 2-hour speedrun down to 40 minutes. And on December 27th, 2016, Jhorxia was the first person to complete the full RTA speedrun using this route, ending up with a time of 46:15. However, this was just the beginning for Angel of Darkness, as Jhorxia would discover something revolutionary. One of the missing pieces of the puzzle lied with the leg-breaking glitch that we saw in the bio research facility. In Wheretiger's route, this was the only place it was used. However, Jhorxia had discovered a way of doing it in the second level of the game, the Derelict Apartment Block. Right at the end of the level, Jhorxia jumps into the top of the flight of stairs, and right before landing, presses the action button, which when used mid-jump, makes Lara bring her arms out, which is used when you want to grab a ledge mid-jump. This makes her float for just a moment, and when she returns to standing, her leg is completely displaced. He can then angle himself right to pick up the key to unlock the door and leave the level. This doesn't actually really save any time over just jumping to the ledge, but this discovery meant that there was now a consistent way of breaking Lara's legs. And on the 31st of December 2016, only 4 days after Jhorxia's first run, Wheretiger would upload a 40-minute 39-second time. It now took all of 5 seconds into the speedrun before Lara's legs are broken. Using the handily placed set of stairs right next to the spawn point, Wheretiger breaks Lara's legs and then runs up to this door. You may remember right at the start of the video, I mentioned an unused training area. Well, that is right on the other side of this door, and Wheretiger is able to aim Lara in the direction of a small health pack before running straight through the unused area to hit the level end trigger, saving around 40 seconds. He would also use this new strategy in the bio research facility instead of using the water feature. However, the craziest new addition to the route would come in the sanitarium. It would turn out that the new method of jumping on the stairs to break the legs wouldn't work on Curtis, it would only work on Lara. However, Wheretiger had discovered a very interesting solution to that problem. After using the Curtis crawl bug to get out of the loaded area at the beginning of the level, he heads straight through until reaching this door atop a staircase. By pressing action on the doors to open them, and then pressing Alt F4 to stop a cutscene from playing, you can get Curtis stood consistently in that exact spot 100% of the time. He then side flips and performs a roll, while also holding forward and crouch at the same time, causing Curtis to lunge forward instantly after rolling. This caused Curtis to bonk into the wall and perfectly break his leg, allowing him to pick up an item across the level. Then a very precise set of movements later, and Wheretiger is able to do a trigger bug out of bounds in a specific location, saving a few minutes. This concludes the first speedrun using leg breaks that do not involve the water feature in the bio-research facility. Jhorxia would soon post a 39-minute 43-second time, however the speedrun was about to evolve once again massively, as Jhorxia would discover another breakthrough trick. As mentioned earlier, 2 collision clipping was a great way of getting Lara to clip through walls, however the only restriction was that you had to have another object behind you. However, on January 5th, 2017, Jhorxia posted a video showing him running up to a door, crouching, and mid-crouch using a quick save. Then, upon reloading the save, Lara crouches straight through the door. This happened because Lara's hitbox would continue to move slightly forward as the level loads in, meaning you could get her to be positioned inside of the door, thus pushing her straight through. However, the timing for the quick save was quite precise, and you only had a few frames to quick save while Lara is moving forward in the animation. But overall it wasn't that difficult, and with practice this would open up the possibilities for where Lara could go out of bounds massively. This bug would soon be named the crouch save bug, and on the 12th of January, Jhorxia would become the first person to ever complete Tomb Raider Angel of Darkness in under half an hour, making great use of the new crouch save bug. It would of course be used to replace 2 collision clipping, as it was faster and could be done in more optimised locations, as well as using it to get through to the unused area in the first level, without doing a leg break and waiting for Lara to walk slowly towards the item pickup. It was even used in the second level, the Derelict Apartment Block, to get through into this elevator, which actually works and can be used to just ride straight to the top of the building, saving having to run around all the stairs and obstacles. However, there would be some places where this new crouch save bug would be used for massive new time saves. In Von Croy's apartment, Jhorxia would pick up the gun and ammo, break the door to get the leg strength upgrade, and then use the crouch save bug to clip out of the room, before side flipping straight into the final corridor of the level, leaving him only with the task of killing this enemy to leave. In the bio-research facility, you would no longer need to break Lara's legs to pick up an item in the room with the door switch, as you could just use the crouch save to get straight through the door without unlocking it. However, it would turn out that you no longer really need to do any of the level properly, as you could use a crouch save to get inside of this door, position Lara at a specific angle, and then stand up to allow her to drop through the floor, conveniently landing you on a platform in a room beneath. Then by running through this corridor, it leads you straight to the room where the level's best known trigger bug could be performed. It would also be used in the Vault of Trophies near the end of the game, which is normally a long swimming level that involves a puzzle, before a long boss fight against a creature called Boaz. Jhorxia would pull Lara out of the water in one of the places where you would normally get Lara's breath back, and would use the crouch save to get through this invisible flat wall. Afterwards you can get Lara to drop back into the water, but this time out of bounds. Once out of bounds in a swimming animation, you can swim around wherever you like, and Jhorxia had discovered that with the correct angle, you could hit not only the Vault of Trophies level end trigger, but the end of the boss fight. Luckily there was a pool of water that would appear, which can be used to get your bearings and adjust your position to hit the trigger, so it's not completely blind. Then in the final level of the game, Eckhart's Lab, Jhorxia would use the crouch save to get out of bounds next to this pool of water. But first he had to do some of the level normally, as the water is boiling hot, and solving the main puzzle of the room cools the water down such that Lara can swim in it without dying. He then swims out of bounds to the final room, where the long and boring final boss fight occurs, but luckily he can swim straight to the top of the room where the final game ending trigger is, skipping the entire boss fight. Jhorxia would soon work this time down to 26 minutes 34 seconds, with some more optimised locations for trigger bugs since Wheretiger's first route video, such as in Ren's pawn shop, a trigger bug had been discovered right at the point of entering, saving around 5 seconds. The same goes for the Monstrum crime scene, where you could do a trigger bug within seconds of entering the level, which wouldn't actually end the level itself, but rather put you in an unloaded room near the end of the level, where you could then run forward to activate a cutscene, before running back and dropping down to run to the exit. At this point, all of this excitement would die down for a while. Within 1 month, the speedrun had gone from almost 2 hours long to under 27 minutes, with lots of game breaking and leg breaking tricks discovered. A few more runners would pick up the speedrun, namely Xriku and Plastic Rainbow, however no new trigger bug locations or tricks were discovered, and the Angel of Darkness scene went quiet. On the 25th of April, Plastic Rainbow would announce that he had found something, and would link a video titled Super Jump? This video starts out by showing Lara jumping in the first level of the game, using this wall for comparison. We can see that her hands reach about the level of the railing. Then he would jump again, but this time he would save and load mid-jump, and as you can see, Lara jumped quite a bit higher than the railing this time. It turns out that this works in a similar way to the crouch save bug, as Lara keeps her momentum as the level loads in, resulting in the peak height of her jump being higher than usual. This would be named a moon jump. On the 6th of May 2017, Plastic Rainbow would implement this into the run in only one place. In the Straw Hut Fortress, he would begin the level by crouch saving through these 3 big walls before running to the end of the room. The door to leave the level is right there, protected by some laser beams, and you can't access it until you've gone into this room and pulled a lever, disabling the lasers. However, there are even more lasers blocking you from getting to that room, as well as explosives on the ground that detonate if you crawl near them, so you couldn't just crawl under them either. Instead, you normally have to do this box arranging puzzle, or use some sort of clip to get through the fence, which then lets you climb up into the vent leading to the area behind the lasers. However, instead, Rainbow stands in front of these tyres and jumps towards them, using the same method used on stairs to break Lara's legs. Now you can line Lara up and she will pick up a weapon on the shelf, very kindly placed just behind the lasers. As mentioned earlier, Lara is completely invincible while in this state, so she can not only make it through the lasers, but also get rid of the explosives without taking damage. Then by jumping carefully onto this ledge, Lara is stood directly underneath the vent that you are supposed to emerge from. However, as Lara doesn't jump high enough to reach the vent, Rainbow performs the new moon jump and climbs into the vent before spinning round, hitting the trigger to spawn the enemy, and continuing through the level. The reason this saves so much time is that normally once you've disabled the lasers for the final door, you normally have to unleash the massive rolling object to blow up the explosives before carefully jumping over and crawling under the lasers. However, as Lara walked through them earlier, the explosives are gone and only one line of lasers remains, simply requiring a careful side flip to get over. Rainbow would ultimately set at 27:41 on the 16th of May, with Jhorxia still sitting on top. Angel of Darkness would once again return to a state of serenity. Months passed with no PBs, no new tricks, trigger bug locations, or any new moonjump strategies, until on the 9th of November 2017, when the silence was broken. Jhorxia posted a way of using the moonjumps to completely skip the final boss fight. By running towards the middle of the final room and then pressing Alt F4 before the cutscene can load, it cancels the boss fight from happening. However, this would normally mean that you couldn't reach the top of the room where the level end trigger is, as a ladder would come down upon finishing the boss fight. However, if you can get a lot of well-timed moonjumps in a row, Lara will eventually hit the level end trigger, normally hit by jumping from the top of the level. This also means that you no longer have to do the puzzle in the final room to cool down the water, as you could just use a crouch save or a stealth clip to get through the door leading to the final boss room, before using the strategy just mentioned to complete the game. At this point, a new speedrunner would emerge, a Swiss speedrunner known as Kadarev. He would use this new moonjump strategy in his runs, and by the 6th of January 2018, both Kadarev and Rainbow were able to top Jhorxia's record, achieving a 24:45 and a 23:23 respectively. However, the way that the speedrun was primarily timed was about to change. The decision was made to now time the game using in-game time, discounting any time spent in loading screens. This change meant that moonjumps would now be incredibly powerful. In real time, the final level moonjumps could take up to a minute, depending on how optimized your timing was with the quick saves. However, without the load times, it would now only count as around 5 seconds. And on the 15th of January 2018, Kadarev would do the first run to use in-game time, achieving a 21:26. Sub 20 now seemed to be on the horizon, and on March 16th, 2018, Kadarev would be the first person to have a sub 20 minute time on the leaderboard. Throughout 2018, more and more new speedrunners would begin picking up the game, including myself. However, before anyone else could even get a sub 20 minute time, Kadarev would also get the first sub 19 minute run. The main changes to the route that occurred throughout 2018 include a new route through Von Kroy's apartment, which includes picking up a rifle, which is then used to kill the enemy much faster than the previously used pistol. And in the archaeological dig site, a trigger bug was discovered straight from spawning into the level. And most importantly, a moonjump location was found in the Monstrum crime scene that saves no more than 10 seconds, but every second counts. Kadarev would eventually bring the time down below 18 minutes on the 17th of October 2019, at which point he left the game to go focus on other speedruns. However, in 2020, a new runner would join and take over the category. This was a French runner known as Flo203, who has so far been able to get the time down to 17 minutes and 10 seconds, as of me writing this video, with help from a few small route improvements, such as a trigger bug on an invisible platform inside of the unused training area, as well as a slightly faster route at the end of the bio-research facility that involves moonjumps while side flipping to get up to a platform before running and dropping down to the trigger bug, saving a good few seconds over the previous leg-breaking strategy to get outside of the room. Sub 17 looks like it just might be possible with the current route, and as of the 20th of February, 6 people have managed to get a run under 20 minutes. So, to summarise, let's take a look at how the current any% route plays out. After going out of bounds in the Parisian backstreets, we perform a trigger bug to get to the Derelict Apartment Block, where we then perform any type of clip, the fastest being a swan dive, to get into the elevator, taking you to the top of the level. Then, in the industrial rooftops, we perform a trigger bug right at the start of the level, taking us into a gripping and unskippable NPC conversation with Mademoiselle Carvier, whose voice actor is definitely an English person putting on a French accent.
Then it was shot. Did you kill him?
Then a trigger bug immediately after spawning into the Parisian ghetto, before running down to Ren's pawn shop to trigger bug out of the level. Then a quick immediate swan dive trigger bug in the Louvre storm drains, leading straight to the Louvre, where we clip out of bounds at the top of the stairs, and if angled correctly, we can actually do a swan dive that slides us elegantly to the next room, before running down the stairs to the archaeological dig site, where we immediately perform a trigger bug back into the galleries under siege. Then after running back up the stairs, we perform a trigger bug in the doorway that sends us into Von Croy's apartment. Then after getting the leg upgrade and clipping into the hall, we then clip through another wall to pick up a rifle, before clipping through the wall again, dropping down to the final hallway to kill the enemy. Then in the Monstrum crime scene, we use moon jumps to hit a level end trigger in the sky. Next in the Strahov Fortress, after clipping through all the big walls, we get to the main room where we do the leg break pickup and then a moon jump into the vent before completing the level as normal. Then in the bio research facility, we clip through several doors, eventually dropping down out of bounds, before running up to a room where we do some moon jumps onto a ledge, which is then followed by a trigger bug. Then we play as Curtis, and we crawl glitch to get out of bounds, before performing the leg break into a ridiculous setup for a trigger bug, which sends us into the maximum containment area, where you then make your way through the level using crawl glitches, leading straight to the Proto-Nephilim boss fight, where you have to shoot this dog until it runs away before running back, which happens 3 times, and is actually the most RNG based part of the run, as there are 3 different places it can drop down from, each taking a different amount of time. Then an instant trigger bug in the aquatic research area, leading straight to the Vault of Trophies, where we clip out of bounds, swimming straight into the level end trigger for the Boaz boss fight. Then, after running through the Lost Domain, we arrive in the final level, Eckhart's Lab, where we clip through the door that leads down to the final boss room, before moon jumping our way up to the game end trigger. A rather broken speedrun, don't you think? Towards the end of 2019, a new category was created known as Better Than Glitchless, which bans the use of glitches such as trigger bugs, leg breaking, crouch saving and moon jumping, resulting in a speedrun that contains a little bit more gameplay than the any % route. I want to say a big thanks to Wheretiger, Jhorxia and Ewil, who answered questions that I had while making this video, as well as to all the Angel of Darkness speedrunners who have helped to make a nice welcoming community. I often think that while a game having hundreds or even thousands of runners calls for some very close and competitive speedruns, these small communities often have stories that are just as interesting. Thanks for watching.